The sound of screeching tires echoed through the narrow, canyon-like streets of New York City, bouncing off the brickwork of Tribeca lofts and fading into the humid night air. Judy Castor's heart didn't just skip a beat. It hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs, a drum solo of anxiety that had been playing on a loop for the last 6 months. She was just another delivery girl, a ghost in a neon vest, grinding through the cold streets to make ends meet. But tonight, everything felt different. The air was heavy, charged with static electricity that made the hair on her arms stand up. The wind cut through her denim jacket, a thrift store find that had seen better decades, and the city's familiar hum felt distant, muffled by the encroaching storm clouds that swallowed the tops of the skyscrapers. Judy pulled her van, a battered Ford Transit she had affectionately named the Beast, into an alley that was far too quiet. The Beast groaned as she shifted into park, the transmission complaining about the abuse of stop-and-go city traffic. The engine idled with a rough shudder that rattled her teeth and shook the fuzzy dice hanging from the rearview mirror. She leaned her forehead against the steering wheel, the cold, cracking plastic biting into her skin. She closed her eyes, inhaling the scent of stale coffee, old cardboard, and the faint, lingering odor of spicy tuna rolls that permeated the cab. The dashboard clock glowed a menacing red. 2:14 a.m. Just 2 more, she whispered to herself, a mantra she had been repeating since midnight. 2 more drops, $50, and I can pay the electric bill. If I don't, the fridge goes off and the kimchi spoils. Can't let the kimchi spoil. Mama will smell it from Queens and lecture me about wasting ancestors' hard work. Her phone buzzed in the cup holder, vibrating violently against a half-empty cup of lukewarm bodega coffee. It wasn't the delivery app. It was her mother. Judy stared at the screen, the name Mama, flashing like a warning sign at a nuclear test site. The photo associated with the contact was a stern selfie her mother had taken in front of a church, her eyes judging Judy even through the pixels. Judy let it go to voicemail. She knew exactly what the message would be. It was the same message every Tuesday, delivered with the precision of a heat-seeking missile. Why haven't you sent the money for your brother's tuition? He is studying engineering. He has a future. Why are you still driving that van? When are you going to use your degree? You are wasting your potential, Judy. You are wasting your life. Being a Blasian woman in a city that demanded you be everything at once was exhausting. To her father's side of the family in Harlem, she wasn't black enough, because she listened to K-pop, spoke fluent Korean, and ate kimchi for breakfast. To her mother's conservative Korean family in Flushing, she was an Afro-Korean disappointment who had abandoned the path to success, nursing school, to haul greasy takeout and mysterious courier packages across the boroughs. She was the black sheep, the failure, the one they whispered about at family gatherings while piling japchae onto her plate out of pity. She lived in the hyphens, belonging nowhere. She picked up the phone not to call back but to check her earnings app. Today's total, $84. Hours online 10. Fuel cost estate, $22.50. It wasn't enough. It was never enough. Rent was due in 3 days. Her student loans were accumulating interest at a rate that made her nauseous. Every time she looked at the balance, it felt like the number had grown teeth and was slowly chewing on her future. The rain began to tap against the windshield, gentle at first, like nervous fingers drumming on a table. Then, it escalated into a rhythmic drumming that drowned out the distant sirens of the city. Judy looked out at the street through the wiper streaks. The neon sign of the bodega across the way flickered, open 24 hours, and then died completely, plunging the block into deeper shadow. I hate this city, she muttered, though she didn't mean it. She loved the energy, the chaos, the way the steam rose from the manholes like dragon's breath. She just hated her place in it. At the bottom, looking up at the penthouse lights where the rich bosses of the city were drinking wine that cost more than her van. The app pinged, a sharp, piercing sound that made her jump in the quiet cab. New request. Location: 4402 Industrial Way, Dock 4. Item: urgent courier pickup. Base pay $15. Tip $20. Come to the rear entrance. Do not ring the bell. Urgent. Judy frowned, her finger hovering over the screen. Industrial Way was in the meatpacking district, but the abandoned part. The part where the streetlights had been shot out years ago during the gang wars and never replaced. The potholes there could swallow a sedan whole. It was a dead zone for cell service and a hotspot for bad decisions. $20 tip. Judy debated. Her thumb hovered over the decline button. Her gut was twisting. That distinct prickly sensation on the back of her neck that her grandmother used to call the sight. It was a biological alarm bell screaming danger. The rain hammered harder, as if trying to wash the decision away. Don't go, a voice in her head whispered. Go home. Eat ramen. Sleep. Watch that drama you like. But then she looked at the electric bill payment reminder stuck to her dashboard with a piece of chewing gum. Past due. $112.40. Fine, she sighed, hitting accept. But if I get murdered, I'm haunting my landlord. I'm going to rattle pipes in his walls forever. I'm going to be the most annoying poltergeist in Brooklyn. She threw the van into gear, the tires spinning on the wet asphalt before catching traction. The beast lurched forward, rattling over a pothole. As she merged into the sparse late-night traffic of the West Side Highway, the rain intensified, blurring the world into streaks of red taillights and yellow street lamps. She turned up the radio to drown out the silence, but the static was heavy tonight, cutting through the jazz station she usually listened to. She felt like a ghost haunting her own life, moving through the motions, invisible to the skyscrapers towering above her. Little did she know, invisibility was about to become a luxury she could no longer afford. She was about to meet the Mafia boss who would change everything. Author's note. Ever feel like you're just going through the motions of life, ignoring the warning signs? Subscribe and see how this Blasian delivery girl's world changes in ways she never imagined. The industrial district was a graveyard of steel and brick, a monument to a manufacturing era long dead. Skeletal cranes loomed against the stormy sky like prehistoric beasts, their rusty arms outstretched as if begging for forgiveness from the heavens. Judy navigated the van through the maze of warehouses, the headlights cutting through the deluge of rain like lightsabers in a murky pond. The GPS on her phone was glitching, the blue dot spinning in circles as she passed under the heavy steel elevated train tracks. The surroundings were desolate, piles of wet cardboard, abandoned shopping carts, and the occasional rat scurrying for cover. 4402 Industrial Way. It was a hulking mass of a building, dark and imposing, its windows boarded up with plywood that had rotted gray. There were no lights on in the upper floors. The only illumination came from a single, flickering sodium vapor bulb buzzing angrily above a rusted loading dock door. It cast a sickly yellow light on the wet pavement, making the oil slicks look like bruised rainbows. Judy killed the engine. The silence that rushed in was heavy, oppressive. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the world. She grabbed the package, a small, nondescript envelope she had picked up from a locker downtown, and zipped up her windbreaker to her chin. Okay, Judy. Drop it, get the signature, get the $20. Run. Do not make eye contact. Do not ask questions. You are a professional. You are a ghost. She opened the van door and was immediately assaulted by the freezing rain. It wasn't just rain. It was ice-cold needles soaking her hair instantly, plastering her curls to her forehead. She jogged toward the loading dock, her sneakers splashing in puddles, the cold water soaking through her socks instantly. She reached the concrete steps and hopped up onto the platform. The concrete was slick with moss and grime. Hello, she called out, her voice swallowed by the sound of the rain and the distant rumble of thunder. Delivery. Courier. Is anyone here? No answer. Just the wind whistling through a crack in the brickwork, sounding like a low moan. She checked the app again, shielding her phone from the rain. Deliver to rear entrance. Leave if no answer after 5 minutes. She walked toward the shadows near the rolling metal door. The smell hit her first. It wasn't the smell of garbage or rot, which she was used to. It was the smell of copper and ozone, sharp, metallic, distinct. It smelled like the butcher shop her uncle used to run, but warmer, fresher, more vital. Then she saw the shoe. It was an expensive shoe. Italian leather, polished to a shine that reflected the flickering overhead light. It was scuffed now, resting at an unnatural angle. Judy froze. Her eyes tracked up the leg, the dark suit pants soaked in water up to the torso. A man was slumped against the brick wall, hidden in the recess of the doorway. He looked like a broken marionette, strings cut, discarded in the rain. Oh my God! Judy gasped, the envelope slipping from her numb fingers and landing in a puddle. She took a step back, her instinct to flee screaming at her legs to move. Run, Judy. Run to the van. Drive away. But then a sound cut through the noise of the storm. Wah wah wah. It was a thin, reedy cry. A sound so small it shouldn't have been audible over the thunder. Judy squinted through the gloom. The man wasn't alone. His arms were wrapped protectively around two objects. Two infant car seats, shielding them with his own body from the rain. The man's head snapped up. Judy gasped. He was devastatingly handsome, even with a split lip and a bruised blooming violet across his high cheekbone. His hair was jet black, wet and falling into eyes that were sharp, terrified, and dangerous. They were the eyes of a wolf caught in a trap, the eyes of a boss who had lost his kingdom. But what stopped Judy's heart wasn't his face. It was the silver Glock 19 pointed directly at her chest. The barrel looked enormous, a black tunnel promising oblivion. Stay back, the Mafia boss rasped. Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth, dripping down onto his white collar. His accent was thick, his voice strained with an agony he was barely suppressing. Judy put her hands up, trembling so hard her shoulders shook. I'm just the delivery girl. I didn't see anything. I swear. I'm leaving. I'm gone. I was never here. No, he groaned, the gun wavering. He wasn't aiming it out of malice. He was aiming it out of desperation. He looked from her to the car seats. One of the babies let out a piercing scream, a sound of pure distress that cut right through Judy's fear. The boss winced, his face contorting in pain as he tried to rock the car seat with his elbow, but his arm was limp. His shirt was soaked in red. A deep spreading stain on his white dress shirt that was growing larger by the second, mingling with the rain. Help them, he whispered, his eyes rolling back slightly before focusing on her again with intense, burning effort. Don't let them take. Judy looked at the gun, then at the man and finally at the babies. Two of them, twins, wrapped in expensive cashmere blankets that were getting soaked, crying in the freezing rain. Their tiny fists were clenched, their faces red with exertion. They looked like tiny angry birds. If I leave they die, Judy thought. The realization hit her like a physical blow. This Mafia boss is dying. The babies will freeze or whoever did this will come back and finish the job. The man's grip on the gun loosened. His head lolled forward, his chin hitting his chest. The gun clattered onto the wet concrete with a metallic clank. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the wails of the infants. Judy stared at him. He was defenseless now. She could run. She should run. She could get in her van, drive away, and call the police anonymously from a payphone 3 blocks away. That was the smart thing to do. That was the safe thing to do. That was what her mother would tell her to do. But the baby's cry pitched higher. A sound of hunger and cold that triggered something primal in Judy's chest. Damn it, Judy cursed, tears pricking her eyes, mixing with the rain. Damn it, Judy. You stupid bleeding heart. You're going to get yourself killed. She rushed forward, falling to her knees in the blood and rainwater. She kicked the gun away, sliding it across the dock into the darkness, and grabbed the Mafia boss's face between her hands. His skin was burning up, fever-hot, yet clammy with shock. Hey, stay with me, she shouted, slapping his cheek lightly. Don't you dare die on me. Not today. His eyes fluttered open. They were dark, endless pools of pain. Leave or die, he whispered, repeating his warning. Shut up, Judy snapped, panic making her voice shrill. I'm not leaving babies in the rain to die. You want to shoot me? Find your gun. Otherwise, shut up and help me. She grabbed his good arm. Can you stand? You have to stand, boss. You're too heavy for me to carry. On 3. 1, 2, 3. What would you do? Run for your life or risk it all for 2 innocent babies and a dying Mafia boss? Hit subscribe to find out what happens next. Getting Gene into the van was a nightmare of physics, leverage, and pure adrenaline. He was heavy, dead weight mixed with dense muscle. Judy had to drag him, his expensive suit ruining the floor mats of her Ford Transit as she hauled him up. She shoved him into the passenger seat, buckling him in as he groaned in semi-consciousness. He smelled of iron and expensive cologne, sandalwood and gunpowder, the scent of a true Mafia boss. Next were the babies. She sprinted back to the dock, slipping on the wet metal stairs, and grabbed a car seat in each hand. They were surprisingly heavy. She didn't know the first thing about babies. She swung the side door open and clicked the seats into the rusted brackets she usually used to secure catering orders or boxes of flyers. Okay, everyone's in, she panted, slamming the door shut. She jumped into the driver's seat and locked the doors. Click-clack. The sound was the most comforting thing she'd heard all night. Her hands were shaking so hard she dropped her keys twice before jamming them into the ignition. The engine roared to life, a rough, coughing sound, and she peeled out of the loading dock, tires smoking against the wet pavement, leaving the envelope and her $20 tip behind. "Where going?" the man mumbled. His head was lolled back against the headrest, sweat beading on his forehead. His hand was pressed against his side, blood seeping through his fingers, staining the gray fabric of her van's seat. "Hospital," Judy said, gripping the wheel until her knuckles turned white. "You're bleeding out. I need to get you to an ER. I know a place in Queens. It's crowded. They won't ask questions." "No." The word was a bark, sudden and violent. He lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. His grip was shockingly strong for a dying man, bruising her skin. "No hospital. They will find us." Judy swerved, nearly hitting a dumpster filled with construction debris. "Dude, let go. Who will find us?" "The police." "Shin," he rasped, sinking back into the seat. "The Shin family. They control the hospitals in this district. They have eyes in the ER waiting rooms, doctors on their payroll." Judy felt a cold pit open in her stomach. "Families? You mean like gangs? Are you a gangster?" The man let out a dark, wheezing laugh that ended in a cough. "Yun. I am Jean Yun." Judy slammed on the brakes at a red light, staring at him. The name Yun wasn't just a name. In the Queens and Flushing underground, the Yun family was urban legend. They ran the imports, the shipping, the money. They were the Korean Mafia royalty, the unseen hand that moved the city. She remembered her uncle whispering about them, about the Tiger of Flushing. "You've got to be kidding me," Judy whispered, her voice barely audible. "I have the Mafia boss in my passenger seat? The actual godfather." "Heir," Jean corrected weakly. "Just heir. Father is dead." Judy looked in the rearview mirror at the two babies. They had stopped crying, lulled by the vibration of the van. "And them? Are they heirs too?" "My sons," Jean said, his voice softening, breaking with an emotion Judy couldn't place. "Protect them, please. They are innocent." Judy looked back at the road. The rain was easing up, turning into a fine mist, but the danger was just beginning. She checked her side mirror. A black SUV with tinted windows, an Escalade sleek and menacing, was 3 cars back. It hadn't turned off Industrial Way when she did. It had turned when she turned. It had changed lanes when she changed lanes. "Hey, Mr. Mafia boss," Judy said, her voice trembling. "Do your friends drive black Cadillac Escalades with no license plates?" Jean struggled to turn his head. He looked in the side mirror. His face went pale, draining what little color he had left. His eyes widened. "Drive," he ordered, his voice suddenly sharp, commanding. The weakness was gone, replaced by pure survival instinct. "Drive fast. Do not stop for lights. Do not stop for anything." "What?" "Drive," he roared. Judy stomped on the gas pedal. The beast lurched forward, running the red light. Horns blared around them as she shot through the intersection, narrowly missing a taxi. The black SUV accelerated, mirroring her move. It roared, closing the gap. It was a predator chasing prey. "They're following us," Judy screamed, clutching the wheel. "Who are they?" "The people who killed my wife," Jean said. The words landed like lead weights in the chaotic cabin. He reached into his jacket, his hand coming away empty. He realized his gun was back on the dock. He looked at Judy. For the first time, the cold mask dropped. He looked terrified. Not for his life, but for the failure of protecting his sons. "I am sorry," he whispered to her. "I have killed you. I dragged you into this Mafia war." "Don't apologize," Judy yelled, swerving onto an on-ramp for the FDR drive, the tires screaming in protest. "Just tell me where to go. I can't go to the hospital, I can't go to the police. Where do I take a bleeding Mafia boss and 2 crying infants at 3 a.m.? Jin's eyes were closing again. The blood loss was taking over. Safe house. Bronx. 112, Freeman. He passed out before he could finish the address. His hand fell limp from his wound. Freeman what? Street. Avenue. Lane. Judy shouted, shaking him with one hand while steering with the other. Gene. Wake up. He didn't answer. The black SUV rammed the back bumper of the van. Crunch. The impact threw Judy forward against the seatbelt, knocking the wind out of her. The babies shrieked, waking up in terror. The van fishtailed on the wet asphalt. Okay, Judy breathed, her eyes narrowing. The fear was still there, but something else was rising to meet it. Anger. And focus. A strange calm washed over her. It was the same focus she used when she had 20 minutes to deliver 5 pizzas across midtown traffic during rush hour. She knew these streets. She knew every pothole, every alley, every shortcut. These mafia soldiers might have horsepower and guns, but she had the knowledge of the grid. She knew the rhythm of the lights. Hold on, kids, she said, downshifting and feeling the engine rev. We're taking the scenic route. She waited until the last second, then yanked the wheel hard to the right, diving into a narrow service alley barely wide enough for the van. She scraped the side mirrors against the brick walls, sparks flying. The SUV, too wide and too fast to make the turn, screeched past the entrance, its brake lights flaring red. Judy didn't stop. She drove deep into the labyrinth of the city, taking corners on 2 wheels, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She was a delivery girl. She delivered things. That was her job. And tonight she was going to deliver Jin Yun and his children to safety, or she was going to die trying. Author's note. Caught in a dangerous world with no exit. What will this Blasian heroine choose next? Subscribe to find out how this spirals out of control. The silence of Judy's apartment building was usually a comfort, a respite from the roaring chaos of the city. Tonight the silence felt heavy, like the air before a tornado. Judy kicked the door to apartment 4B shut with her heel, twisting the deadbolt and the chain lock with trembling fingers. Her lungs burned from the effort of dragging a 6'2" mafia boss up 4 flights of narrow, creaking stairs. She had practically carried him, his arm draped over her shoulder, his feet dragging. She dumped Gene onto her fraying beige sofa, his weight making the old springs groan in protest. He landed awkwardly, his head lolling back. Okay, she panted, wiping sweat and rain from her eyes. Okay, don't die on my rug. I can't afford a cleaner. And if you die, I have no idea what to do with the babies. She spun around to check the twins. They were in their car seats on the floor, surprisingly quiet now, their wide dark eyes tracking her frantic movements. They looked like miniature versions of the man bleeding out on her couch, solemn, watchful, and eerily calm. Judy rushed to the kitchen, sweeping her arm across the counter to clear the stack of unpaid bills and takeout menus. She grabbed the first aid kit she kept under the sink, a relic from her days as a nursing student before the tuition money ran dry and life got in the way. It was a sturdy red box, well-stocked because she was paranoid about accidents. Sterile gauze, alcohol, tweezers, suture kit, lidocaine, she muttered, dumping the contents onto the coffee table. She snapped on a pair of latex gloves. She knelt beside Gene. His face was gray, the color of ash, a stark contrast to the dark blood soaking his white shirt. She ripped the expensive fabric open, the buttons popping off and skittering across the wooden floor like tiny pearls. The wound was ugly, a gunshot to the lower left abdomen. It had missed the gut, mostly catching the oblique muscle. It was a through and through, but the exit wound on his back was jagged and weeping blood onto her cushions. Wake up, Judy commanded, slapping his cheek harder this time. I need you conscious for this. I need to know if you're allergic to anything. Gene gasped, his body arching off the cushions. His hand flew out, gripping Judy's wrist with bruising force. His eyes were wild, unseeing for a second before they focused on her face. Where? My apartment, Judy said, her voice shaking but her hand steady as she uncapped a bottle of rubbing alcohol. You passed out before you could give me the address. And I'm not driving around the Bronx with a dying mafia boss and 2 babies while a kill squad hunts us. We're in Queens. Safe. For now. Gene looked around the small, cluttered living room, the peeling paint, the mismatched furniture. The K-pop poster she hadn't taken down since college, the drying rack full of uniforms. It was a far cry from the penthouses and marble halls he was used to. "You are foolish," he wheezed, trying to sit up but failing. "They will track the van." "I parked it 3 blocks away in a loading zone for the supermarket," Judy lied. She had parked it in the alley behind the building, under a blue tarp she used for moving. "Now shut up. This is going to hurt. A lot." She poured the alcohol directly into the wound. Jean didn't scream. He made a sound deep in his throat, a guttural growl of agony, his teeth clenching so hard Judy thought they might shatter. His knuckles turned white as he gripped the sofa cushion, tearing the fabric. His body seized, muscles locking up, sweat instantly beading on his forehead and mixing with the rain. "Breathe," Judy ordered, her nursing training kicking in. She was no longer a delivery girl, she was a medic. "I need to clean it and stitch it. If I don't, you go septic and die in 2 days." For the next hour, the only sounds in the apartment were the hiss of rain against the window, the soft cooing of the babies, and Jin's labored breathing. Judy worked with a focus she hadn't felt in years. This wasn't delivering packages. This was life and death. Her hands, usually callous from steering wheels and cardboard boxes, were gentle and precise as she threaded the needle. When she tied the final knot on the suture, she sat back on her heels, exhausted. Her adrenaline was fading, leaving her shaking. "You're lucky," she said, tossing the bloody gauze into a trash bag. "It missed the vital organs. But you've lost a lot of blood. You need fluids." Jean was watching her. The pain was still there, etched into the lines of his face, but his eyes were clear and intense. He looked at her as if seeing her for the first time, seeing the Blasian woman who had saved him. "You have medical training," he stated. It wasn't a question. 2 years of nursing school, Judy said, standing up to wash her hands in the kitchenette sink. The water turned pink as she scrubbed. "Ran out of money. Dropped out. Now I deliver spicy tuna rolls to Wall Street bros who don't tip." She turned back, drying her hands on a dish towel. Jean had pushed himself into a sitting position, wincing. "Why?" he asked. "Why what? Why did I drop out? Tuition is expensive, Jean. Why did you help me?" Jean looked at his sons, who had finally fallen asleep. "You could have left. No one would have blamed you. You put a target on your back for strangers." Judy leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. She looked at the babies. "I saw them. I couldn't leave them. And I saw you. Me. You looked like you were ready to die for them," Judy said softly. "My dad. He left when I was 5. He wouldn't have taken a bullet for me. Seeing you hold them like that. I couldn't walk away." Jin's expression darkened. He looked down at his hands, stained with his own blood. "I should have died. Tonight was a setup. My own lieutenant. A man I trusted like a brother. He sold us out to the Shin family. The people chasing us? The Shins are animals," Jean said, his voice low and cold, filled with a terrifying resolve. "They have been trying to take over the ports for years. My father held them back. When he died last month, they saw weakness. They didn't just want to kill me, Judy. They wanted the twins." Judy felt a chill run down her spine. "Why the babies?" "Legitimacy," Jean spat. "In our world, lineage is power. If they have my sons, they control the Yun family trust. They would raise them as puppets. Or worse, they would eliminate the bloodline entirely." He looked up at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes broke Judy's heart. "They killed my wife Unji 3 days ago," he whispered. "She was buying diapers. They shot her in the parking lot. I was 10 minutes late." Judy covered her mouth, horror washing over her. She looked at the sleeping infants, innocent and oblivious to the war being fought over them. She had thought her life was hard. Bills, nagging parents, loneliness as an Afro-Korean woman trying to fit in. But this was a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions. "I am sorry," Judy said softly. "I didn't know." "Do not be sorry," Jean said, his gaze hardening into something steel-like. "Be afraid. Because now that you have saved the Mafia boss, they will come for you too. You are part of this story now." Author's note. What would you do? Risk everything for a boss who's already lost it all? Hit subscribe to see where this journey leads. Morning came too quickly. It arrived as a gray, sluggish light filtering through the cheap blinds, illuminating the bloodstains on the rug Judy hadn't managed to scrub out. Judy woke up in the armchair, her neck stiff, her body aching. Jean was still on the couch, but he was awake. He had one of the babies on his chest, his large hand spanning the infant's entire back. The baby was asleep, rising and falling with Jin's breathing. For a second, the domesticity of the scene threw Judy off. It looked peaceful, beautiful even. Then she saw the weapon, her largest kitchen knife, resting on the floor within Jin's reach. "How are you feeling?" Judy asked, stretching and hearing her back crack. "Like I have been shot," Jean grunted, though his color was better. He sat up carefully, cradling his son. "We need to move. We have stayed too long." "You can't walk," Judy argued. "You'll rip the stitches. You need rest. And you cannot stay here," Jean countered. "Give me your phone." Judy hesitated, then handed it over. Jean scrolled through it, his face tightening. "You have the location services on," he said accusingly. "Yeah, for the delivery app. I have to. It's how I get paid. The Shin hackers can ping a GPS signal in seconds if they have your number. Did you call anyone last night?" "No." Judy froze. "My mom called me. I didn't answer, but it went to voicemail. And I checked the app." Jean cursed in Korean, a harsh string of words. He stood up, swaying slightly, handing the baby to Judy. "Pack a bag. Essentials only. We leave now." "You're paranoid," Judy said, though she was already moving to grab diapers and formula. "Nobody knows who I am. I'm just a Blasian delivery girl from Queens." Crash. The sound of glass shattering came from the street below. Then the distinct, wailing siren of a car alarm. Her car alarm. Judy rushed to the window and peeked through the slats. Her heart stopped. Down on the street, her Ford Transit, the beast, was in flames. Black smoke billowed into the morning air. Standing around it were 3 men in dark raincoats. One of them was looking up at the building, scanning the windows row by row. "They found the van," Judy whispered, terror gripping her throat. "They found us. Get away from the window," Jean hissed, pulling her back. The hallway buzzer buzzed. Once, twice, then a long, continuous drone. Someone was leaning on it. "They are buzzing every apartment," Jean said, his eyes scanning the room for a weapon. He grabbed a heavy metal lamp, ripping the cord from the wall. "They will force their way in. We have 3 minutes. We're on the 4th floor," Judy said, panic making her breath short. "There's no elevator. Just the stairs." "Fire escape," Jean ordered. "Go. Now." Judy grabbed the diaper bag and the car seat with the other twin. Jean took the first baby, gritting his teeth against the pain in his side. They rushed to the bedroom window. Judy threw it open, the cold morning air hitting her face. The metal fire escape was rusted and slick with rain. "Go," Jean urged her. "I will follow." Judy climbed out, the metal grating clanging under her sneakers. She looked down. The alleyway was empty for now, but the men out front would circle back any second. She reached up to take the baby from Jean so he could climb out. As he swung his leg over the sill, the front door of her apartment splintered with a deafening crack. "Check the rooms. Clear the floor," a voice shouted from inside. "Hurry," Judy whispered, clutching the baby to her chest. Jean dropped onto the fire escape, his face white with pain, clutching his side. He slid the window shut just as the bedroom door kicked open. They scrambled down the ladder, the metal groaning under their weight. Judy didn't look back. She focused on her footing, on the baby strapped into the carrier she had slung over her shoulders. They hit the ground in the alleyway and ran. Judy led them through the backlots, cutting through a broken chain-link fence into the neighboring construction site. They huddled behind a stack of drywall as a black SUV roared past the alley entrance. Judy slid down against the concrete, her chest heaving. "My van. My apartment. Everything I own is back there." She looked at Jean. He was leaning against the wall, sweat dripping from his nose. He looked at her with a profound, heavy sadness. "I told you," he said softly. "Your old life is gone." Judy looked at her hands. They were shaking. She had lost her job, her home, and her safety in the span of 6 hours. She looked at the twins, who were miraculously silent, sensing the danger. She felt a surge of anger. Not at Jean but at the people who had done this. The people who burned her van. The people who shot a mother buying diapers. She looked up at Jean. "So where do we go now?" "I have a safe house," Jean said. "But I cannot make it there on foot. I need resources." Judy reached into her bra and pulled out a wad of cash, her tips from the week. It wasn't much, maybe $200. "I can steal a car," Judy said, the words tasting strange in her mouth. Jean looked at her, eyebrows raised. "You." "I grew up in this neighborhood, Jean," Judy said, standing up and brushing the dust off her jeans. Her eyes were hard. "I know how to hotwire a Honda. My cousin taught me. There's an old Civic parked on 42nd that never moves." She looked back at the smoke rising from her street. "They burned my van," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and rage. "I loved that piece of junk." She turned to Jean. "You protect the babies. I'll get us wheels." Jean watched her go, a flicker of admiration crossing his stoic face. She wasn't just a delivery girl anymore. She was a Blasian queen, a survivor in the making. Caught between survival and loyalty. What will Judy do next? Subscribe to find out. The safe house wasn't a house. It was a decommissioned textile factory in the Bronx, reinforced with steel doors and soundproofed windows. It was cold, echoing, and smelled of dust and old oil. Judy sat on a crate, her arms wrapped around herself. The twins were asleep in a makeshift crib Jean had fashioned from blankets and a drawer found in an office. Jean was by the window, peering through a crack in the painted-over glass. He had found a stash of weapons hidden in the floorboards, a cache left by his father years ago. He looked more like the Mafia boss she had imagined now, a shoulder holster strapped over his ruined shirt, his face grim, checking the magazine of a semi-automatic rifle. "They are coming," Jean said, his voice devoid of emotion. "I saw the scout car pass twice. A gray sedan. They are verifying the perimeter." "How did they find us?" Judy asked, her voice trembling. "I ditched the stolen car 3 blocks away. I wiped the steering wheel." "They didn't track the car." Jean turned to her. "They tracked the blood. Or the patterns. The Shin family has eyes everywhere. Or perhaps there is a tracker on one of the carriers I missed." He walked over to her, kneeling so they were eye level. He placed a heavy, cold object in her hand. A pistol. A revolver, heavy and terrifying. "I cannot protect both doors," Jean said. "If they come through the back you must shoot. Do not hesitate. Aim for the center mass. The chest." Judy stared at the gun. Felt alien, wrong. "Jean, I deliver noodles. I don't shoot people. I save people." "Today you do," he said, his eyes burning into hers. "For them." He nodded toward the sleeping babies. "If they get past me, they will not show mercy." A thunderous boom shook the building. The front steel doors buckled inward, smoke pouring through the seams. "Take cover," Jean roared. He flipped a heavy steel work table onto its side, shoving Judy and the babies behind it just as the doors blew open with a second explosion. Debris filled the air, concrete dust and metal shards. Gunfire erupted immediately. It was deafening, a chaotic symphony of cracks and pings as bullets chewed up the concrete pillars. Jean returned fire, his movements efficient and deadly. He wasn't the injured man on the couch anymore. He was a Mafia soldier. He fired controlled bursts, conserving ammunition. Judy curled over the twins, shielding their bodies with her own as plaster rained down on them. The babies started screaming, the sound tearing through Judy's heart. She squeezed her eyes shut, clutching the revolver. "Flank left. Take the side room," a voice shouted from the smoke. Judy looked toward the rear entrance, the one Jean had told her to watch. The door handle turned slowly. "Do not hesitate." The door kicked open. A man in a tactical vest stepped through, raising a shotgun. He didn't see Jean. He saw the table. He saw Judy. Time slowed down. Judy didn't think. She didn't weigh the moral consequences. She just saw the black barrel of the shotgun swinging toward the babies. She raised the pistol, her hands shaking until she gripped it with both, took a breath and pulled the trigger. Bang! The recoil jarred her shoulder, sending a shockwave up her arm. The man stumbled back, clutching his shoulder, and fell out of the doorway, his shotgun clattering to the floor. Judy! Jean shouted, seeing what she'd done. I'm okay, she screamed back, though she was sobbing. I got him. I shot him. But there were too many of them. The front line was pushing forward. Jin's rifle clicked empty. He tossed it aside and drew his handgun, but he was pinned down by suppressing fire. Jin Yun! A voice boomed from the smoke. It was a man in a pristine white suit, walking calmly through the gunfire. Give us the heirs and we will make your death quick. Jin looked at Judy. He looked at his sons. A look of devastating resignation crossed his face. He looked at his empty rifle. Stay down, he whispered to Judy. He stood up, walking out from behind the cover, his hands raised. No, Judy screamed. Jean! I surrender, Jean called out. Let the girl and the children go. They are nothing to you. The man in white smiled, raising his own weapon. We don't leave witnesses, Jean. You should know that. We clean the slate. He aimed at Jin's head, but he never pulled the trigger. A red mist erupted from the man's chest. A split second later, the crack of a high-powered sniper rifle echoed through the warehouse, coming from the skylights above. Glass rained down as black-clad figures rappelled from the ceiling ropes, moving with terrifying precision. They weren't Shin men. They wore the crest of a tiger on their vests. The Yun Guard. Jean breathed, sagging against a pillar, relief washing over him. They finally answered the call of the boss. The tide turned in seconds. The Shin enforcers, caught between Jean and his loyalists, were decimated. When the silence finally fell, it was heavier than the gunfire. The battle is won, but at what cost? Hit subscribe to witness the emotional fallout. The warehouse was a hive of activity. Men in suits were cleaning up the bodies, efficiently and quietly wrapping them in plastic. A medical team, a real one this time with monitors and IVs, was tending to Jin's wound. Judy sat near the open bay doors, watching the rain wash away the blood on the pavement outside. She was shaking, the adrenaline crash hitting her like a freight train. She had shot a man. She had almost died. She had seen people die. She felt a presence beside her. Jean lowered himself onto the concrete next to her. He had a fresh bandage and a clean shirt, provided by his men. He looked like the Mafia boss again, powerful, untouchable, radiating authority, except for the way he looked at her. He lived, Jean said softly. The man you shot. It was a shoulder wound. He will live to stand trial. Judy let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Good. That's it. I didn't want to kill him. You saved my life, Judy. Twice. Once on the dock and once in here. I was saving the babies, she muttered, wrapping her arms around her knees. You were just a bonus. Jean let out a rare, genuine chuckle. He reached out, his hand hovering over hers before he gently covered it. His skin was warm. A bonus. I have been called many things. Boss killer heir. Never a bonus. My men are securing the city, Jean said. The Shin family is in retreat. Their leader is dead. The war is not over, but we have won the night. So, what happens now? Judy asked, looking at him. I go back to delivering pizza? If I even have a job? Or a home? My van is ash, Jean. Jin's face hardened. You cannot go back. You are known now. The Shin family remnants know your face. If you go back to your old life, you will be a target. They will use you to get to me. Judy laughed, a bitter, sharp sound. So I'm homeless, jobless, and hunted. Great. Best $20 tip ever. No, Jean said firmly. He turned his hand, interlacing his fingers with hers. You are none of those things. You are with me. Judy looked at their joined hands. It was a promise, heavy and terrifying. I'm not a mob wife, Jean. I'm a nursing school dropout who likes spicy wings and cheap wine. I don't fit in your world. Look at me. I'm a Blasian girl from the block, not a Mafia queen. My world is changing, Jean said. I am changing it. I need someone who is not part of the rot. Someone who would risk her life for 2 children she didn't know. I need a conscience. I need an Afro-Korean queen who knows how to fight. I need you. He leaned closer, the scent of rain and expensive cologne filling her senses. Come with me, he whispered. Not as an employee. Not as a guest. As my partner. Judy looked back at the makeshift crib where the twins were now being cooed over by terrifying-looking bodyguards. She looked at the wreckage of the warehouse. She thought about her empty apartment, her nagging mother, the endless rain-soaked nights of loneliness. She thought about the beast burning in the street. She squeezed the Mafia boss's hand back. "I have conditions," she said. Jean smiled, a dangerous, charming thing. "Name them." 1. No more shooting at me. 2. You pay for my nursing degree. 3. We get the twins a real crib. And 4. I drive. Jean brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. Done. Author's note. The danger has passed, but the romance is just beginning. Don't miss the final chapter. 3 months later. The view from the penthouse overlooking Central Park was breathtaking. The autumn leaves were turning gold and amber, a sharp contrast to the gray steel of the city. Judy stood on the balcony, holding a steaming mug of coffee. She wasn't wearing a delivery uniform. She was wearing a silk robe that cost more than her old van. Inside, the living room was a chaotic mix of luxury and infancy. Toys were scattered across the Persian rug. 2 state-of-the-art cribs sat near the fireplace. "You are going to be late," a deep voice rumbled behind her. Jean stepped onto the balcony, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. He rested his chin on her shoulder. He looked tired. Running a crime syndicate while trying to legitimize it was exhausting work, but happy. The shadows under his eyes were lighter. "I have an exam today," Judy said, leaning back into him. "Anatomy and physiology. If I fail, it's your fault for keeping me up all night." "I was merely helping you study," Jean murmured against her neck, sending shivers down her spine. "Anatomy is very important." Judy laughed, turning in his arms to face him. She traced the faint scar on his jawline. It hadn't been easy. The Shin family was still out there, lurking in the shadows. There were bodyguards everywhere. One was currently standing by the elevator pretending not to watch them. Judy had to learn to live with the constant underlying hum of danger. She carried pepper spray and a panic button everywhere. But she had also found something she never expected. A family. The twins Leo and Sam were thriving. And Jean was trying. He was ruthless with his enemies, yes, but with her he was gentle. He was learning to be a father. Learning to let go of the darkness that had consumed his life. "Are you happy?" Jean asked, searching her eyes. It was a question he asked often, as if he couldn't believe she was still there. Judy looked out at the city. It was the same city she had driven through 1,000 times in the rain. Feeling invisible. Now she felt seen. She felt vital. She felt proud of her Afro-Korean heritage and her Mafia future. "I'm terrified half the time," Judy admitted honestly. "But yeah, I'm happy. I have purpose." Jean kissed her deep and slow, a promise of protection and passion. "Go to school," he whispered against her lips. "Pass your exam. Then come home. We have a dinner meeting with the council." "Boring," Judy teased. "I will let you yell at them," Jean offered. "They are terrified of you. The delivery girl who shot an enforcer. Legend has it you are a trained assassin." Judy smirked, pulling away and grabbing her bag. "It's the boss's girlfriend now. Get it right." She walked to the elevator, pausing to look back at him. He was watching her with that same intensity he had in the loading dock, but the desperation was gone, replaced by devotion. Judy Castor walked into the elevator, the doors closing on her old life forever. She had delivered herself into a new world, and for the first time, she was exactly where she was meant to be. Thank you for watching Judy and Jin's journey. If you loved this story about a Blasian delivery girl and her Mafia boss, please leave a comment and share.